And I think it's showtime.
Cheers,
What's going on,
everybody.
everybody? Welcome to your favorite Friday night hash podcast. And I'm sure there's about 16 other words that Fergroli throws in there that I don't remember. But, anyways, cheers. Friday night. Welcome. Got my Coca-Cola over here. Got my Captain Size Love rig over here with 3 blenders ready to go. I don't know that I'll be able to get through the 3 blenders, but I'm sure gonna fucking try.
Oh, brother.
I'm your host, one of them, Pedro. Here's your other one over, I guess, on this side, I think is the way it is. It's on one of them. Superior Buds. We usually have our third podcast or our third
I almost said third
gentleman
wheel, but then it
on
just
the
comes out wrong.
panelists. There we go. And he is traveling this week, and we generally have a guest as well. Could not fill that seat this week because of you guys. You sucked at helping us get somebody on the panel. Do better next week.
It's all good though. We're here to enjoy Friday night, talk some hash, smoke some hash, look at some hash.
If we start getting a little slow, we may or may not drop on out of here, but we'll play on that. Again, that can be a lot on your guys' shoulders as well. Keep us talking, keep us dabbing, and fucking we'll be here. So
yeah, let's get into it.
What do we got over here?
We got a lot of chatters going on already today. Cheers, everybody.
Actually chatting a lot. Let's say hi to some people. Jones, Dr. Leby, Mr. Craigie, Bit by Silver, Tigro, Sheldon, Magneter, Red Setter. What's going on, Evan? What's going on? Purple Slurpee. Chucky's Nugs. What do we got? JS, Lone Dabber. How the hell are you? Sheldon. I think that's about it. Sliming. And if you show up after this, then you should have shown up before, because I'm probably not going to say hi to everybody all night.
Gotta be here when the start, right? Take care. Oh,
I'm definitely gonna take a dab.
Well, you go ahead and get into a dab. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about some cool studies I found over this last week.
Yeah, I heard you had some things to talk about, or that you may or may not want to get into and go over.
It's more just very cool stuff to look at. I've never looked at a trichome under an electron microscope before, and seeing a trichome and the different stages of development is pretty enlightening. And especially us as hash makers, it's important to us. You know, we need that, the thin neck. You want it to snap off. You want the full head. You don't want the oil leaking out before you're able to. You don't want I guess I knew this, but I've never seen it before. But trichomes going through senescence. So just like your plants, actually shriveling and basically going through their death as well.
Absolutely.
You know, we've talked before about people taking their runs an extra week or two to help the heads break off. But that's a fine line when you really look at the maturation cycle.
The variable right there, I think that literally may be where we started the whole variable conversation, if I remember back to it, was the trichome maturation and when and where to take it, and the different things that you look at, the different variables that you look at with a plant. There's a reason why a breeder will keep a male and or female around, and it's going to change based on whether we're going to take it to flower or if we're going to take it to hash generally. And then, yeah, like you were talking about with the senescence, with the trichome head, there was actually somebody that just talked about this recently in pretty good detail regarding taking a trichome head at a plump ripe stage rather than a more fully ripe head stage, and what that does to the waxy cuticle, as well as the for the most part, the monoterpene and terpene loss just in general, what it can
Right.
mean.
Exactly. And in fact, I can show this portion of it as an example of senescence on a trichome under an electron microscope and seeing the shrivel. And I've noticed this before under, the loop myself, just glancing at them, but you're not looking super close. Seeing the detail and that there's actual ruptures during senescence, it's pretty wild because you're losing what we're going after. So you've got to find that fine line of where is it got the peak oil content, peak terpene content, the ability to break the head off, but yet hasn't started to rupture and lose everything that you want.
And this is where and why live rosin, excuse me, came to become a thing, was because we wanted to control those variables during the growth stage, harvest, freeze, essentially freeze that maturation, and then collect it from there. And then there's other people who are looking for another different appreciation, where they're actually looking for that mature trichome head for variable different reasons.
Right.
Cheers.
Let me see if this is actually a research article that's available, so I can link this off to chat later, or we can put it in the description or something. But it's a full study on the glandular trichome development, morphology, and maturation, and all the different influences. So, right, we all have different variables. Length of time before harvest, how you harvest, how you trim, how you store.
different reasons for different variables.
100%. Yeah, I didn't. There's some things that have always in my mind I've assumed, but I never knew as fact. Right, things you see over and over, and the senescence of the trichome was one of those things. Like at one point, gosh, it's probably been 4 years, maybe. I took a plant 2-3 weeks beyond just to see can I go? Is it, does it just keep going amber, or what happens? And sure enough, you get the shriveled trichomes, and then you get your yield drop. But beyond that, your hash to rosin percentage drops. That was the interesting variable I wasn't expecting. In my mind, when senescence went, I thought it was just like a drying of a trichome, and it was just shriveling and still containing everything. But what I've learned via the study is they actually are cracking at that point, and that you're losing what you want, or potentially.
You're losing a lot of terpene content. So but here's the other thing that people don't think about. And I mean, this conversation can go down so many different or different paths. But one of the things that people don't consider when we think about a terpene loss is we're talking ratios, right? We've got a terpene to THCA ratio, right? And obviously, what happens if the terpene content goes down? So is this a bad thing? Is this a variable? Now we're back to where we were just talking about. We want to shift the variables based on different outcome preferences, right? And maybe all of us have different preferences as well. So we can what it goes back to is having conversations like this so that we can understand that we're driving this car, boat, ship, whatever you want to call it, right? And the knowledge, obtaining the knowledge and being able to understand what we are manipulating and why we are manipulating it, ultimately gives us, I mean, that's our ultimate goal. That's what this show is for.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome to see full on studies happening now on individual little parts, right? It's not talking the plant as a whole. This study is entirely focused on the trichome. That was it. And in very interesting things. The difference between a hand trim and a machine trim was the one we've always talked about. This we know that hand trimming is better, but why? Well, now we have electron microscope photos that show us what happens to the trichomes in a machine, and it's not pretty. Very interesting findings in this.
And again, man, one of the things that I was thinking about when you were going back and you were talking about taking the plant a week longer, right? I have the ability, whatever you want to call it, to the luck, if whatever you want to call it, to work in the industry, right? And one of the things that I didn't realize that I was going to see moving into a commercial setting was the differences versus it in a personal, smaller home setup, right? So when you start talking about taking a plant or a harvest, generally, because you're generally going to be harvesting a room. Within that room, you've got sections of the room which give you a couple of days one way or the other, right, as far as fluctuation for time, as when we're talking
As long
about
as you
time
lay
of
it out right.
harvest. Yeah,
So you
exactly,
do the
right.
whole room at once.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to do this, but we're going to do these two beds over here, and then Thursday, Friday next week, we're going to do, those two beds, whatever. But you have the ability to manipulate it a little bit. But if you're talking about taking a room a week longer, if you do it once, not a big deal, right? But if you do it more than, if you do it more than once, you're talking about pushing back your ultimate harvests 1 week here, 1 week there, 1 week there, which is extremely hard, if not impossible, to get back.
Yeah, it's hard to justify in a commercial setting for sure. I mean, you stack that multiple times and you lose an entire harvest over, by the time you do this, what, 4 or 5 times, you've lost an extra harvest or whatever in that space. Well, I guess if it's a week at a time, what, 8 harvests and you've lost a harvest?
Well, and yes, and a lot of these times when you're talking about doing a test, you're not talking about just testing a harvest. In most cases, you're talking about. Sorry, I've had this chest thing ever since 2 weeks ago when I had my issue. Fuck, where were we going with that?
Harvest.
The harvest time. Damn it, I lost my train of thought. I completely lost my train of thought. You're going to remind me where the hell I was going with that. We were talking about losing a week here and there.
Then losing the harvest. Cost you an extra harvest over the year.
Cost you an extra harvest. Maybe Chad will have to remind me. Pedro Stone. No, Pedro's not stoned. I did a half an hour live stream before this to get ready for the show, and we may or may not have done a couple of dabs. Oh, and I may or may not have took a full capsule about an hour and a half or 2 hours ago.
There we go.
So
capsules are always fun.
Yeah.
Did you celebrate Cupin's? Did you see Cupin's new holiday that he launched?
I did not. What did he launch?
8/1. It's the edible holiday.
Oh, sweet.
I ate one. Did you eat one?
I did. I didn't know, but I did.
But 8/1, right? So it's perfect.
Right? That's fucking funny.
And funny enough, it got big enough that Curaleaf and True Leaf both did 8-1 specials at their dispensaries. It was pretty cool. That was a Cupid's idea. It was a
That
smart
is
one.
pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
He's like, we got 420, we've got 710, now we got 8-1.
Damn it! That what I was getting at was something important too.
It was about being in commercial and the differences.
And losing. Oh, was it? Oh, I think it was when you're changing something, when you're testing something, it's not generally just a singular test, because you're going to test something, you're going to see the result, you're going to then change a variable. Here we are. That was unintentional as fuck. You're going to change a variable, then you're going to run another test. You're going to record the results. You're going to change another variable, and you're going to probably do this 4 to 8 times, I would say, and not that it's going to be 4 to 8 wasted harvests, but it can be 4 to 8 fluctuations, positive or negative, but
on all your
possible
variables.
very possible fluctuations. And now you're talking, for instance, this last one hit home because you were talking about the taking it a couple of days longer, unintentionally, not because we were trying to intentionally change this variable, but we took a harvest, I think it was only 5 days longer, and we're noticing a significant enough color change that us processors were like, yo, what the fuck's going on?
Something changed.
Something changed here, and it was very quick to determine that that he took the harvest 5 days longer. and that was what made us have this entire conversation regarding this can't happen because
right. Yeah, it's interesting then. So I would love to be able to I wish I did more testing, right, on my end product, because I have much more ability to play where you don't get that in a commercial. You can play somewhat, but you can't be as loose and fast as I can be, because it doesn't matter if I fuck everything up. Like if my shit comes back crappy, I'm just gonna let my friends smoke it or whatever.
We almost have to set aside a room or a bed or something to do that in a commercial setting.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good idea. That I actually have seen 2 facilities here that have started doing that, where they have their testing chambers, and they're much smaller. They're not full on flower rooms, but they're doing like mini runs almost. And because of course plant counts, even at the commercial level.
But here and again, you very well could be detrimentally affecting your harvest, whether it be with shitty flower or shitty yield, but you're doing that versus changing a variable on an entire harvest and potentially, putting an entire harvest up on the line.
Putting something at risk. Right. Yeah. And doing that testing, it would be interesting to find that one where you can go, like you said, say the 5 days longer, but maybe your yield increases by enough that it matters for that 5%, right?
And doesn't decrease your
right.
Doesn't decrease your
cannabinoids, terpenes.
But very potentially may also increase your overall percentages, because
or shift the percentages, right?
And maybe your terpene percentages went up, and your color didn't change. So now, yes, we have a detrimental because of timing, right? Let's say we're losing 5 days every single harvest, but we're getting better rosin in the form of terpene content, maybe THCA content, maybe yield.
You said something that made me think. Are you guys, so I've seen kind of a shift away from it, and I think we touched on it a few weeks back. But how important do you feel color is still to this day? Because we went like so far with
This is
I say
this
we
this
as like our the hash world where we pushed blonde, blonde, blonde as you can get. And then people are like, oh, well, I'm just going to harvest 2 weeks early and get really blonde or, whatever. You got people.
well, y'all can get mad at me if you want, but you're going to get limited information here, and I'm not going to bend on that. But one of the favorite rosins that I've had probably in the last year and a half or two is this rosin right here in front of me.
Yeah, and not that pure blonde,
and not that blonde. So you now again variables. I have to answer that 2 different ways. I have to answer that maybe even 3 different ways on a connoisseur processor level, on a connoisseur consumption level, maybe even I guess 4 different ways, and now on a commercial processing level and a commercial consumption level, consumption preference level, which drives the production level.
Yes, production. I mean, you got to make what people want to buy.
Exactly, ultimately. Dude. Exactly. So if people, if you know, and you understand that you can get dark rosin and it still or resin, whatever. I'm hash, whatever. You can get darker color and it doesn't, it absolutely can mean shitty hash, but it doesn't always dictate shitty hash.
Right.
And
conversely, I almost feel like blonder doesn't mean higher quality either.
Fuck no.
Too many people have fallen into that trap over the years, and we pushed it so far that blonde is gold and gold is good. My mind was there at the beginning, right? It took me a while to process enough and to get some of the darker stuff and go, you know what? Like, I got this that looks much darker, 3 shades darker than the last run, but it tastes better.
Or a higher percentage of rosin that's blonde is good,
right?
Versus the percentage of rosin that's not blonde that's good. I hope I said that right.
I get what you're saying, though. Yeah, you're more likely to get
your blonde rosin is more likely to be good than your dark rosin. You know, in most cases,
in most commercial.
Man, I had some critical kush that I ran this year, and it's actually still back here. It's full jar, and it's gorgeous looking, but I'm afraid to fucking smoke it because the last time I smoked it, it was not good. It was one of those ones where you're like,
something's different.
Something's wrong with this. What the fuck happened? Like, whoa. That's not critical.
The one thing that kind of caught me was I noticed some dispensaries pushing more towards blonde. And then what I was finding is some of their blondes were very racy. And strains, cultivars that didn't feel racy to me prior. So that's where I'm like, wait, are they cutting early so that they can get more blonde, but then changing the effects to be more or was it just a weird run? Right. It's a hard one to judge.
You gave me the ability to go down a fun road, a fun road here. Let me drink some Coca-Cola first. So you said racy, right? You said blonde and you said racy, which to me is they're not hand in hand. But what that does make me think about is the commercial industry making you label something as sativa or indica, and absolutely defining
turn off.
sativa as racy, your coffee, your uppity, and defining uh, your hybrid or your uh, uh, indica as a go to sleep,
Right.
and I've had to go. I've had to kind of bite my lip and finally understand that unfortunately, somewhat, and we can educate, which is why we do what we do, right? But at some point in time, you just kind of got to let the consumer drive the market, right? Where they
Unfortunately, they're the ones paying.
yeah. So they want to know that they're getting an indica, and so then the question then that becomes this conversation is it a mostly correct thing, whereas 97% indica is going to make you go to sleep, or is it an in your head thing where you told me this is going to make me go to sleep, so it's going to make me go to sleep? Or what is your thought behind it as I warm up my
Yeah,
deck?
I had a conversation with someone a while back about this because it's always bothered me. I hate seeing, hybrid 85% sativa and 15% indica. And it's like, come on, who came up with that freaking percentage bias like that? Um, and talking about, indica versus sativa, the racy versus sleepy, and someone saying, well, they understand that that's not the full picture, but does it mean, and this he posed it more as a question. We discussed it. Was Is it more likely that things we call indica, broadleaf, the terpenes that they have, are they more likely to cause that effect, the entourage, when mixed with the cannabinoids? Is that why we have an indica couch lock kind of grouping in our heads? When they were originally grown, is it the environment that they're grown in that causes the broadleaf, drives the terpene collection of terpenes that you end up with? Do they cause that effect?
Mhm.
And it made me think, like, I don't know. Um, so we started looking at, we dug into the research on, okay, here's traditional indicas, here's traditional sativas, here's your known terpenes in each of these strains. We went through, I created a damn spreadsheet and then started seeing, is there any correlation? Is there correlation for causation? Is really, or like you said, is it in
Or
our
is it an individual response?
and that's the other one. That's the way my body reacts is very different than your body, and everybody, we all have our own systems. We talked about it a while back where I used Frenchie's recipe to make uh bang, the old school cannabis tea, and that stuff fucked me up. I passed out and just slept through an entire movie. The wife sat there and watched an entire movie. I started at the beginning and woke up at the end. It was like, holy shit. And then felt it the next day. My buddy who drank the exact same amount called me and was like, dude, I want more of that stuff. I got home, I ate a giant burger, and I cleaned my whole house. And I'm like, we had night and day reactions. So it was interesting that was one of my first times of seeing a full, like, dramatic.
I was going to say that's a pretty extreme difference as well.
It was, and for me, it was the most weed hungover I've had in decades. Like, I felt it the next day. My brain was cloudy.
Now I guess I'll share for the, what do we got, 41 people here. I haven't figured out exactly where this is going to go yet, so you're lucky for even hearing
My
this,
turn.
I guess. So I've been getting more of a similar response, more of a consistent response with myself with edibles. And what I've been noticing, number one, what I've been doing is I only use rosin. So I'll either use rosin that I just overall don't want to smoke because of terpene content or age or whatever. Maybe it's micron spectrum, whatever reason, right? Undesirable rosin to smoke. I'll set that aside, and I will decarb it. So I will heat it and completely decarb the rosin. And then I will mix that to, now this becomes variables. We could get into a conversation regarding ratios for potency with coconut oil. And but because I've decarbed it, it's generally resulted in that much more of a downer, relaxing. I don't want to necessarily say sleepy, but most certainly one that I feel in the morning the next day. Felt it this morning from yesterday morning, and will most likely feel it tomorrow morning from this night or this night. See, tonight. As you've seen, I can't even remember things that I was talking about 30 seconds ago. So, partial ADHD, partial.
That was kind of my thought with this. Is I had decarbed for the bang as well, and I was wondering if that was part of it for me. I feel like my metabolism, it's like I absorb it all at once, and it just bam. Versus my friend, who was a larger guy, metabolized a little slower, and maybe that was the difference.
Yeah, maybe. I definitely noticed that that eating the rosin, we'll say, for multiple different reasons, has been much more pleasurable to me than using a flour-based infusion. Or even an alcohol-based infusion, which I'm not opposed to.
That's a good point, because I did use flour when we made that. I didn't use rosin. So maybe that would be a good experiment.
Man, use rosin once.
Oh, I know.
Use rosin. And the nice thing about it is undesirable rosin, when decarbed, when then consumed, via, an edible, generally tastes, I won't say the same, but it doesn't, so far to me, hasn't had as much of a variable of taste, which to me is great because A, I really enjoy it, and B, it's repeatable. So fucking let's go.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times my problem with edibles when I was younger was it always tasted like flour, and it literally tasted like I'm eating a plant.
Agreed.
I hated that taste. Now, there are benefits to that, consuming chlorophyll
absolutely.
and all of that. There's secondary benefits, so that's fine. But for me, I think I would enjoy the rosin edibles a lot better.
I think
I'm also a little scared of it because of the way my body processes them. Edibles
so for potency.
Yeah, I just get knocked on my ass.
Just play with your potency of. So if you put in for the people watching, so it's easy to think about. If you do 1-to-1, of course you're going to do 1 gram of rosin and 1 gram of coconut oil. So now we'll walk down this road. I think this is a good road. I've walked down this a couple different times, and so I hope let's try to get this right. Okay. So we're gonna have to use round ball numbers, but we're gonna use what we're gonna use. All right. And I'm all right. I'll shut up. I'll stop explaining. So 1 gram of rosin, right? 70% THC, right? So now you've got 1 gram of rosin, 700 milligrams. right? Decarb you're going to consume 700-ish milligrams. If it's 700, that this is where I stopped and I was thinking, because we're going to have to make some assumptions, right? Right. So
hold on. Let me do this for the viewers too. Let's
you're going to show the numbers visually.
yeah, let's
Okay.
figure out how we do this. I'm going to use the old notepad. So you said
You
1
do
gram.
1 gram is 1,000 milligrams at 70% potency is going to be 700 milligrams THC. Assumed we're decarbed. Okay, right. So
Yep.
now you just eat it. Now you got just decarbed. You just eat it. You just ate 700 milligrams. Okay. Now, but let's continue. And let's say we're going to use 1-to-1, because here's the other thing: when you start using a coconut oil or a fatty carrier, if you will, which I like the coconut oil, it gives your body something to absorb. It helps the absorption rate and complete how completely. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying though.
more completely. That'll work. I'll go with that. So okay, so let's go 1-to-1 so that we're helping the absorption rate. Okay, so 1-to-1. So now you're going to have 1 gram, 700 milligrams of rosin, and you're going to have 1 gram, 700 milligrams of coconut oil. Excuse me.
We end up with 1,400 milligrams of.
No, that 1 gram would not be 700. That 1 gram would be 1,000, because it's not 70%. See, this is where we have these conversations on the way to work, and we're like, wait a second, 700. So, so now you've got 700 milligrams of THCA with 1,000 milligrams of coconut oil.
Oh, I gotcha. You're right.
So now you would have
this is
your 1,700 milligrams in a container. Now you've got.
Are you actually? So isn't this also 1,000 though? Even though it's 700 THC, but
it's 1,000 milligrams of rosin.
Right. Okay.
But it's 700 milligrams of THC.
Yes. Okay.
So we've converted, isolated the. Yes, it's 1,000 milligrams of weight, but it's only 700 milligrams.
So we end up with 2,000 milligrams in the end
of weight, but only. See, here we go. God damn it.
I get you though.
So we got 2. So now we got 2 grams at the end of only 1,700 milligrams. So now you're only going to stretch that. Did I say 17? You're only going to stretch that 700 milligrams the more coconut oil you put in. So if you put in 4 grams of coconut oil, now you've got 5 grams of liquid, because it is going to be a liquid at that point in time. But you're going to have that 700 milligrams of THC that's going to be spread over the then 6,000 milligrams, 6 grams.
I see what you're saying.
So you're taking that 700 and you're spreading it out over how much coconut oil and rosin. So if you're going to use 5 grams of coconut oil and a gram of rosin, you're using 6 grams. But you still only ever have 700. Now, of course, we're assuming numbers. you only ever have 700 grams of THC. Let's assume decarbed. So you're never going to have more. You're never going to all of a sudden be like, oh, this extra THC so showed up, right?
Mhm.
Oh, you're only going to ever have 700. It just, you're
So
going
what
to
are your
stretch that how much you use in a syringe. So I don't have a syringe here.
I was gonna say, what's your normal dose? Because are you are these going into capsules or are
Yeah,
you?
yes. So I use I call it a double aught.
It's the double lot. Yep.
Yeah, yep, 00 um, capsule. And if I fill the bottom side of the cap and then put the top on, I found that it's about 0.9 grams of rosin. So now you have to run the numbers on that.
Yep.
If you're going to run 0.9 grams of rosin and you're going to assume 0.7 grams potency, but you're going to cut it, it starts getting
It does. It
fun.
does. Well, we have 2,000 is our total weight. If they're 900, you only get.
If we stop changing variables, like we got to lock in on some variables in order to make these numbers flow.
Yeah. I bet I could put this in a spreadsheet.
So that's why I was just assuming the 70% potency, which is somewhere between 65 and 70 generally, depending on what micron range you're going to use.
If we're starting at 70% potency, then what we're saying is by the time we're done, we're at 1 gram is 35%, which is what, 350? Yeah, 350 milligrams.
Per what?
So as an example, we got our 2,000 milligrams at the end.
Mm-hmm.
We cut it into 2 capsules. Say instead of 0.9, it was 1.0. We cut it into 2 equal capsules. So we've split our potency still.
Each capsule would then have 350 milligrams.
Yes. Yep. So that gets us to our 350.
Yep.
I'm telling you, Evan, I could.
What was it?
I could make this a spreadsheet.
Oh, absolutely. Buds can make this. It's just doing it on the show and we're this high.
So what you're saying then, now if we modify this, so now we take this and we go down and we say we're going to add 2,000 milligrams of coconut oil.
Yep. Adding it. Yep. Instead of adding 1 gram of coconut oil, now you're adding 2 grams of coconut oil.
Yep. So now we've got 300 milligrams.
Now we can talk about cups. We can talk about, we can talk about any variable we want, but we're grams, just so people know that
yes,
all of these variables can be changed. So go ahead. Sorry, 2 grams.
Yep, no worries. So now what we end up with is 233.33 milligrams per. So that is a good indicator. So we've dropped it 115-ish or 117-ish milligrams by adding 1,000. Now we could cut the difference. We had 1,500. Now we're at 2,500 total weight. Now I need my calculator back.
I was like, you started losing me. You started losing me.
We've got 700 milligrams, and we're dividing it by 25. Oh, I did it backwards. Cutting it in half is going to be hard because of your 1 point. So we would only get 2.5. We keep it equal thousands. Yeah.
But see, now you've got 3 grams of material. Now you've got 3 grams of oil at the end. So now you'd be taking 3 capsules. So you'd have 3 capsules, but you'd have 700 divided by 3.
Right. Yeah. So Yeah, which is
would
the
be
233.
700
So
divided
that
by
would
3. Yep. So now each capsule, instead of being 350 milligrams, each capsule is then 233 milligrams.
Yep. And then we get, if we do it one more level, we get to 175. So that makes a lot of sense. So
Yep.
excuse me. So you just increase your coconut oil ratio to dilute your product and
Correct.
get yourself the milligrams that you want. Now
Correct.
what is your recommended dose? Not your dose, but your recommended dose for an edible for most people.
I can't.
No, you'd have to start small and just work them up.
Yeah, I can't.
Because that's what's always.
It would start with, okay. I'll answer the question. It would start with questions, and essentially what I would be trying to determine would be your experience, i.e. The owner of the company that I work for, we started a gummy line, and he's tried a gummy, and if I remember correctly, the gummy was 5 milligrams, and that, he said, was pretty much psychedelic.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of going with this. Is, randomly, if you buy something at a dispensary, they're going to give you a pack of gummies. Sooner or later, you're going to get a free pack of gummies.
Yep.
So I have a horrible edible tolerance. I know I do. But I take these 10 milligram gummies and I'm like, what in the fuck was that? Like, I don't feel anything. And the same with the drinks they've come out with, 10 milligrams is just, as a normal smoker, that's not even enough for me. But that's interesting for you to say that a 5 milligram like looped him up, because I don't know if I know anyone who would. Well, I guess maybe my mom or someone, right? But
yeah, so then you could, as far as the 100 milligrams, you could take your 100 milligrams and use Bud's spreadsheet and figure out exactly how much rosin to coconut oil you have to use.
That's a whole different buzz.
I used the wrong COC. And thanks, Chaga, I appreciate that. And then make it for, there. I've been using a 1-to-1 ratio. So if it's one jar of one, it's another one jar of the other,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, because it's me and it's generally for me, and I'll make sure that if you're gonna try it, you're gonna know that these were made for me. So be careful. But anyways, I just do a visual 1-to-1, So
Okay.
if we're gonna assume the sevens, the 700, we'd be 350 divided by the 0.9.
I think with myself,
Times 0.9.
I'd probably have to start at 100 and work my way from there.
So I'm at 315.
Okay.
Probably ish. And I that's the other thing, for whatever reason, and I don't quite know the variables yet. There's times that I'll take a capsule and it's like, it didn't really do much. Mm-hmm. And then there's times I'll take a capsule and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, why did that one just
throw you for a loop?
Make me not be able to talk like right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean, there's some variables there as well.
How do you mix the two and ensure that equal distribution, I guess? Is that part of what you're just mentioning? Like
heat and stir.
Yeah. So you're just hoping for a good blend.
Yeah.
Like.
Yep. Heat and stir.
Always.
And maybe that's it, because I generally don't heat and stir every time. you know, because how are you going to heat and stir a little jar? You know, you can put it in the microwave for 20 seconds. You're going to put it in
Speaking of,
the oven. What are you going to do? You know, so there's generally I will homogenize and then just fill up syringes and fill up capsules with syringes.
okay, that makes sense. Um,
The syringe solution was monumentally fucking beneficial.
I imagine. The only thing I've ever filled on double aughts are dried mushrooms, so that's much easier to fill. Rosin, you've got to really.
There's Thomas right here. Coffee cup warming plate for the.
That's a smart idea. I
That's
actually have one sitting in front of me.
It's a really smart idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah, good tip.
For sure, for sure.
Thinking that through now. So yeah, I think with me, because I'm planning on doing what you've done, which is your food grade. I have plenty of food grade left over that is just frozen and sitting. It's been vac sealed and frozen, and it just the stash keeps getting bigger. So I think I'm going to try some edibles with it. And so having the math would be nice.
It's really nice to just have what a more of a potent, more of a potent edible. And so instead of having to eat 3 packages of gummies in order
That's
to
what I was gonna say. When I got the gummies, I ate the entire package because I ate one and I'm like, all right, there's no way. So one night before the show, I ate the whole package. And then still dabbed all show. I don't remember falling out of any show. So couldn't have been that bad.
So I enjoy being able to not eat as much, and still enjoy a real potent high.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Lone Dabber, I brought this one up. He uses sunflower I hate that word. Now, you don't do anything but coconut oil in yours, right?
I just do coconut oil, and that's essentially for lack of any kind of research outside of.
And I was going to ask, do you have any bathroom side effects? That would be the polite way to say it.
So with the I like to call it Hiko. And I'll make the change. I'll educate the change by saying the both of them at the same time when I'm making the change. So I like to call it Hiko, hash extracted cannabis oil, which we used to call full extract cannabis oil, and we also used to use different solutions for removals of the oil, and so anyways, when I've done the Hiko, or more specifically the Fico, it's bad.
Yeah,
like it's bad. It's like the drinking coffee, but worse. Like just bad. Yeah, bad. With the Hiko, which is, I guess you can't really call this Hiko. You'd have to call this more of like a rosin oil. The Hiko would be using your spent rosin pucks. That's right. And extracting them the same way you would extract your Fico, but using hash
I've got those as well
instead.
still.
So just using the rosin, i.e., not using any solvents, and turning that into an oil, to then answer your question, no, it is much nicer on that
Awesome.
front. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is very valid and very important question.
that's always been one of the fears, right? That's the last thing I need to be doing.
I don't know. I don't know, and this is a question for you. What percentage of cannabis consumers, just as a whole, what percentage do you think know what FICO RSO does on the bathroom front?
Yeah, you hear a lot of proponents of RSO, and you don't hear a lot of bathroom talk. I hear people recommend RSO constantly, and I never hear them go, but you gotta watch out for this. So it almost, that's why it makes me think like, and maybe this is just an internet thing, but there might be a lot of proponents of things like RSO that they've never really tried it, so they're just they're regurgitating what they've already been told. Right? It's not a personal experience, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. That's why I like from you actually have done it. You've taken it. You can explain the experiences, the math. Anyone can tell you how to make it and tell you it's going to save you, but I'm going to tell you you're going to shit constantly, or it's
Right,
like
right. They're going to tell you you're going to piss out your ass
right.
for the next day and a half. I think a lot of that is education that generally, I think, stops at the distribution level. once the customer has walked once they walked into a freaking dispensary, they don't get the education about whatever product, and this is hit or miss, that's equally as disappointing. It's hit or miss as to who knows what and which employee knows what, and maybe even which employee is pissed off at their girlfriend and isn't willing to share that information that fucking day, so that person doesn't understand, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So essentially, as a whole, for whatever reason it is, education at the dispensary, education at the purchase level is monumentally important to correct use of this plant as a whole, and less experimenting on the goddamn consumer level,
Right. Can you give me one quick moment?
I was just gonna take a dab, you son of a bitch, but yeah,
I've got
we
to
can
turn a
figure it
sail
out.
off. I totally forgot. Just
We
1
can
minute.
we can figure it out. I've talked more than this in the past. I think I've had a couple hour streams, but no, the edible level, it is one of the education. The edible and the dabbing are two of the things that that don't get explained the way they should at a dispensary level. People really just don't know what they're buying. They don't know what different variables to look for. And what different variable may change someone's experience, and I can see, and was just thinking, man, if somebody is using something and expects one effect, they're trying to go to sleep, right? They've been explained it's an indica. They're going to go to sleep, and they eat it, and they experience all of a sudden like a caffeine buzz. That can be anxiety inducing, and at that point in time, I mean that's something where a little bit of education very well may have stopped someone's negative experience. Even they could have had a more of an educated experience, which obviously would have made it is not as good. I think I said that wrong, but I'm just going to walk away from it. I'm not a topical guy ever. I in life in general, not even just on the THC level. I've never been a topical guy. I can't stand the feeling of something on my skin. I can't stand the feeling of oil or lotion or especially anything sticky, or I just can't stand the feel. Bug sprays, suntan lotion or screen. I just can't stand the feeling of anything of a topical on myself. It just it kind of disgusts me. Kind of disgusts me.
All right, sorry about that.
You're fine. We were talking about topicals and how disgusting they are to wipe them on your skin.
If they're too greasy, I agree. If they're made correctly, you can get some good ones. They're not as bad. The wife has made some good lotions that rub in really well. And our missing host tonight, I've had some of his body butter, CBD body butter, that I actually gave to my mother for her Raynaud's arthritis in the hands. It's like severe inflammation on the knuckles. But that's something I know he used to do quite a bit of. I actually don't know if he still does that. Puppy's watching us tonight, so he was just sitting there watching you torch up there, Pedro. That's funny. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a possibility that CBD use or even THCA use, regardless of how it's consumed, do you think that there's a possibility that like it's quote unquote in your head and if it is just in your head, wouldn't that be beneficial even if it is a placebo effect?
I mean, body can do some crazy stuff, right?
Right.
A placebo effect wouldn't be a bad thing. It would be cheaper.
Right.
I don't know. I do know that like I don't trust like gas station CBD products. That is a whole different category than the things like that Fagroli makes, where he's actually extracting, doing his tri-fuel extraction and then taking that and then infusing it. But I do have, I totally forgot that I have it until 2 days ago, and then I never used it. But I have some CBD lotion for my back. But with that, I don't know that the CBD anything. Damn, Pedro. But I do know that there's menthol and some others, and those are the things that I was smelling. And
those orange terps, man.
ooh, Yeah, the placebo effect's an interesting one to explore. It would almost be cool to do like a double blind test with something like that.
It really would, right?
But
And then
at the same time, if you're going to do a double blind, like if someone needs help, do you really want to give them a placebo? But damn,
right? Do you really want to be right if it's helping?
Yeah, right. Do you want to be wrong? And they end up being like, man, this shit sucks. And the other guy's like, man, it's awesome.
Right.
Like, well,
and does the placebo effect then explain the indica sativa hybrid?
Right.
And back to the same exact thing. Then, if an indica is an indica because it's a placebo effect, is me being right worth it? Isn't me being right kind of selfish on my part?
I know, right?
Why not just let you have your fucking,
Who cares if it doesn't add anything, as long as they're feeling good in the end, right? Like you've got 50 ingredients in this stuff. Like which one is really helping you? But who knows? But as long as you feel better in the morning,
right?
Yeah, I mean, I could get behind it as long as it's not a gouging thing, right? I've got 20 cents in ingredients and I'm going to charge you $50 for it because I'm putting CBD on there.
I'll try not to go into too much information, but because of the recent medication that I've been requiring, right? Just one of them that I think it's the worst one so far that I've run into. The one worst medication for a 1 month supply is $3,400 for a 1 month supply. Look at this. Hang on. This is the great part. Aside from that absurdity, if I get a half a month supply, $10.
That's crazy, right? Like, and is it the same manufacturer? It's not like a generic.
Same. And because they changed this was a whole this was a crazy thing for the last couple of days. Instead of taking 2 pills twice a day, changed me to 1 pill twice a day, just having me swallow less pills, right? Mm-hmm. That change, same milligram, same everything, blah, blah, blah. That changed the price even more.
So wild how that stuff works right now. It's such a broken system. If you look at Mark Cuban has started something called Cost Plus Drugs, where he goes and negotiates with super overpriced drugs and gets the price way down and then sells them as cheap as he can to people. Now he doesn't have everything. You and I talked about this before. Some of your stuff they didn't have, but it's the more common medication that millions of Americans need, and then they're gouging like that. It's just all across the board. It's such a mess.
Well, like I said, I can't understand, but fine, $3,400 a month. But then when you can justify a half of that order at what is the price? Or if we're 50%
broken there, yeah,
we're a 50% difference in quantity, but we're not a 50% difference in price,
right?
And I can understand if it was off just a little bit.
Right.
Sure, fine, whatever.
Yeah, you got packaging, whatever the fuck you want to throw some
absolutely.
Not that fucking dramatic. That's stupid.
That's a little. Come on.
It's almost like someone negotiated the price for the half a month, and they forgot that people order a month's supply at a time.
Right. Is it just an oversight?
Is that a computer thing that someone fucked up and did?
Maybe we should stop talking about it type shit. you
Yeah,
know?
like, yeah, right. All of a sudden, they're gonna be like, "Wait, he's getting that shit for $10? Hold on." Like,
Gotta change this shit up. But yeah, it's this. I don't know why we were going down that road, but I feel like Joe Rogan going down this road.
well, let's get back to trichomes for a minute. I teased it early on. I wanna get your opinion on something here.
Oh, opinions are sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's not really an opinion, it's just thoughts, let's say. I am on the wrong there we go.
Thomas, I'm seeing that there's a lot of people there's a lot of different workers that are willing to do a lot of that are willing to go to different lengths, which then makes you as a consumer have to almost make the worker do their job or be enough of a dick to ensure that, like, anyways.
Yeah, they make the system so hard for everyone to navigate that, you get a lazy pharmacy worker, they're just gonna take the easiest way to get your shit,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not be the best for you, and I don't know if pharmacy workers take it like the Hippocratic Oath or whatever, but, the whole
Right.
that would be awfully nice.
Right. Yeah, agreed. It seems like some definitely have. I've ran into some that are
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, you can find some areas. We have some people around here, that just bend over backwards and try to do everything for you. Because especially in our area, it's a low income area. It's pretty rural, right? You gotta be able to help the older folks.
All right. What was your question?
So the difference between B and C on this. Let's see. Can I zoom in on this?
I think why is my YouTube chat not the same as as my chat over here? Anyways, if I've missed your chat on one side or the other, I apologize. My chats aren't, I don't know what's wrong. I'm not the youngest and the most educated gentleman anymore when it comes to all of this, but
so here's our first picture of hand trimmed buds and their trichomes. But then you go down to this one, and there's your machine trim. And you can see how many of the trichomes have been decapitated all through here.
For sure.
Which was a good assumption, but I've never actually seen it like this.
So, as a processor and someone who has absolutely looked at this in different ways for different reasons, the first thing that I think of when I think of a trim bin and or a machine trimmed flower is I think of the material that I'm going to collect outside of the flower. I'm thinking of how good the sift is going to be. If so, that would obviously then indicate that as a processor, I understand and I expect this, which is an obvious negative.
Yeah, it was interesting to see it at this level.
Yeah, I agreed with you. I think I remember seeing this. Did you find this on Instagram?
No, this was in part of that study.
Okay. I thought I
This is part
remember
of the
seeing some
trichome
of these,
study.
and maybe I
Someone
did.
might have
Maybe they were
posted
post.
these.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe there's
Yeah,
some.
very
I feel
possible.
like I remember seeing, and maybe it wasn't even these same people, but I was seeing this same
I
thing
know
where they
Schwale
were
has been doing
showing
a lot of this type of stuff.
they were showing yeah Schwale generally in if I remember correctly, um kind of zooming on an individual trichome, um but this person or people or facility and the one that I remember seeing was like this. It was showing different variables, right? And it was showing the results of the different variables at more of this kind of a level than just your loop. I mean, because let's face it, a loop is great, but man, you really got to hold a loop steady in
Yes.
order to get to see what you really want to see,
And the USB little cameras, I love those too. But just like that, if you can't hold that bud completely still
Hmm.
and hold your camera completely still, you pretty much have to put it on a desk and
Yep.
set it up to do it.
Now there are answers, but you again having these conversations, knowing this information, knowing that maybe if I buy this one instead. I remember Pedro and Buds were talking about this, and I think this one, because it's got a tray or it's got a clip where it's going to hold the bud, or it's going to or it's going to, and
Yeah.
it's going to
So
have both where I can use it for rosin and for flower, and it's going to give me
when
the
I
ability
first
to
got
zoom in. And
when I first got my first USB microscope, it hooks to the phone, you can do it all. And then you go in the flower room and you try to use this thing, and you're standing there, you're trying to hold it. And first off, your hand isn't very steady. Then you're messing with the zoom. And then your damn oscillating fan comes by and moves the whole flipping plant. And the whole thing swings. And now it took me a while to really figure out. And I tried stupid stuff, hooking clips up, and I put the ladder in there and set the dang camera on the ladder so it wasn't my hand shaking anymore. And uh, nothing really worked really well until I just said, you know what? I, I got to look at it on my desk. I got to sacrifice
just cut a
something
bud. Yep.
somewhere.
Yep. 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 There's a lot of just cut a bud or cut a piece of a bud. Get in there
Right.
with your sharp. Um, I like the chickamasas anymore, honestly. But I'll tell you, every, and I think this is 100%. Every brand new pair of chickamasas. What are those?
These were um it's one of the higher brands that I can't remember now. Damn it. And they're the coated ones. These are my detail ones. Like you were just talking
Yeah.
about, you need to get in and you want just as
Yeah.
small of a piece as you can. They're very pointy tipped. I mean, if you do this, I'll go through my fucking hand. So
And that's where I was getting at. Every goddamn brand new piece of, or Chicamasa scissors that I bust out, and I get the manual ones. I'm not a fan of
the spring.
the spring assisted ones, but
If I'm trimming, it's got to be spring.
every brand new one I've cut myself, and it's
Yeah.
been a pretty significant cut.
Uh,
They're sharp as fuck, dude, and I'm almost, not almost, I think 100% of the time I fucking
yeah.
cut myself.
Oh,
I cut myself.
I've definitely taken like the end of a finger off number of times trimming, and just you get a little too close and you're like, oh, there it goes. They're
Yep.
just
I'm generally, I like right on that knuckle, like somewhere right on that fucking knuckle, somehow, some way. But I've got the generic ones as well. um, but what were the spring assist ones? God, I can't remember.
I
They
know
were they were the
I'm trying to find my pair. They're normally up here somewhere.
they were the ones that everybody fucking used. Um, and I cannot think of the name of them. The Fiskars.
Yes. Thank you.
Fiskars. Yep. Surprised I remembered that with as much as I've been forgetting tonight. But the problem with the Fiskars is you generally got to have a pocket knife sitting aside so that you can clean the inside.
Blades.
Yep, the inside, so that the spring will assist the lockup, the inevitable lockup, from
I
the
think we talked
oil.
about this before. I know for you like the bigger handle chickamasas, right? You use the
The
big,
orange
not the
ones.
smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
I
have
think
like
that's only because that's one of the only ones I've ever seen.
I thought I'd have to look at their site anymore.
I was
I
going
have
to
a
say,
lot
maybe
of
I just need to do some more exploration.
they do a lot. I mean, they're a scissor company, right? They do a lot.
Obviously, right?
It's kind of like Fiskars. Like, dude, I have loppers. My loppers outside that I cut tree branches with
Yes,
are
dude.
Fiskars.
I love those. I
Yeah.
love them.
I use the living shit out of my Fiskars
I
outside. And
used
I
to.
even have it's a log dog thing. It's like it's a long handle and the end of it's all pointing. It's got a saw on it, but you just swing it and stick it in the end of a log to move a log around. I do that for when I'm dropping trees, and that's a Fisker piece too. They make a lot of different stuff. But so opposite of the handle, what type of blade do you like? Do you like the straight blades or the curved or?
That's a horrible thing, right? So I obviously the straight blade with the Fiskars, because that was the ones that you always use, right? That was the one that I used starting out for the longest time. But then I started using the curved blade, or not the curved blade, the enclosed handle, and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I want these, It was just I knew Chikamasas were super sharp, and I liked the blade style, and I didn't dislike the handle style, and it was big enough, it wasn't where it was going to be restrictive.
With no spring, you need that enclosed, and you want that wider, so it's not like they seem to be really nice on your hands. I don't know how else to say
They
it.
are. I would agree 100%.
You buy shitty sewing types ones and use them for freaking 2 hours, and you're gonna have a mark on the back of your fingers.
Yep. No, if I had to recommend over the straight handled spring assist old school Fiskars and the new manual, not new, but the new to me, I guess, manual, large, enclosed handled, orange handled Chikamasas, I would hands down recommend the Chikamasas. Hands down. And I think they're relatively close in price. I mean, both under $100 for sure.
Yeah, they actually have quite the product line.
Do they? Okay, cool.
And in fact, they're just like Fisker. So so they have everything. Let's see if I can. So your traditional
different style spring assist, but sure.
Yeah, lots of different.
Wow, those are some bonsai motherfuckers. Look at those.
That's
holy wild. Short blade.
Look at the spring assist with the enclosed handle.
Yeah, with the enclosed on one side.
That's an interesting design. I hadn't seen that one. But they go all
those
the way.
Are boy, I don't even know which ones I use anymore now after seeing this fucking line. I don't even know which ones I use anymore.
I know there's so many.
Wow.
And it just keeps going.
It really is.
Then you get pruning type.
Some bitch.
Oh, here's your pruning shears.
Sure.
There's your loppers. Can you imagine? You'd take a fucking ankle off.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
Pruning saws. Florist. Flower arrangements. Like, they have way more than I.
Cool ass heady series back there.
There you go.
Fuck, dude. Can be a pimp.
Right? I got a sheath on my belt with my Chikamasas.
I got my Chikamasa chic. Chikamasa. I can't. Chikamasa sheath. That's too many chikish. No axes. I have a Fisker's axe. Why are words not working?
Lots of Lots of the cannabinoids. I have I'm trying to think of.
I'm going on another dab.
The wife got me a full kit, so I've got like the hatchet, the axe, the awl, like the fireman's awl, where it's an axe on one side and then a rotated axe on the other. I don't know how you say it. AWL.
And all. I'll just I'll give you all. Fuck it.
Something like that. It's oh, that's not the right word, is it?
I'm sure there's a little bit of a W pronunciation, like an owl. But now we're gonna get into calling it an owl.
An owl.
And that goes back to the whatever show. That's a whatever show reference. Holy shit, that's an expensive owl.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't heard that in a while.
I know, right?
Did I get?
Yeah, that's an old school saying right there.
I can't think of it, but nice little set. Use the living crap out of them. You know, living in the woods, you got to have sharp tools.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a camper and a hunter, that is my reason.
Well, of course, I'm another week behind now at this point, but we're really kicking ass on this meadow project out here. It's about a 3,000 square foot, maybe bigger, 4,000, 5,000 square foot meadow, all wildflower meadow. Started with pure sand, and now all the edges are done, all the plants are in, everything's growing. Tomorrow, I'm making another batch of biochar. I'm gonna use the wood chipper to bust up the biochar and shoot that shit everywhere. And then, oh, go ahead.
No, I have something to. I have a road to go down. I'm just going to try to remember the road.
Yeah. So, gonna do the biochar tomorrow, and then once that's done, then it'll be. We got a bunch of shit to put down, fulvic or humic acids and some bat shit. Got to have some bat shit.
Bat shit.
Some chicken shit, compost.
Bat shit's good shit.
Yeah, we got lots of good stuff to put down, and then just doing like a top 2-inch till, and she's done. Plant the final stuff. I'm ready.
So I'm going to ask this, and I'm going to ask it slowly. I'm going to play into it intentionally. We were going down the edible route, and this is what brought me back to it, I guess. What are your thoughts behind, again, I'll dip my toe in first. What are your thoughts? And let's just walk down, let's just keep this isolated to edibles. What are your thoughts on added terpenes?
I would obviously prefer cannabis derived terpenes.
Yeah, I was going to say let's assume also, man, variables, right? Imagine that, fucking variables.
Right.
So let's assume as well clean cannabis derived terpenes.
Right.
What is your thought behind that?
As with edibles, I don't have as much of an issue with it. As I do with rosin, right? I think adding it to rosin is, well, I screwed that up. We're still like cannabis derived, so I'm okay with adding it back, I guess, as long as it's clean cannabis derived. Now, botanically derived, I'm actually okay with that in edibles, but I wouldn't be okay with it in rosin. If that
that's why I was isolating it, because of course we're fucking variables.
Yeah,
so we're isolating it to cannabis derived, cleanly cannabis derived in edibles.
Adding it back in,
yes,
or adding additional. You're saying, right?
Adding, I mean, wouldn't it be one and the same?
Yeah. So you're trying to increase the terpene. With edibles,
essentially.
With edibles, I guess I really wouldn't mind. I don't see an issue with it because to me, edibles is more cooking then as long as it's not like, I wouldn't do it if you 10 times it and you eat it and your shit smells like oranges.
Yeah, ratios obviously would become
Yeah, but I
different
mean,
variables, but
if it's not being added, how to say it, I guess, if it's being added for the right reasons, like, oh,
I this
I
is
know
where
that
I thought this was going this way. This is why I
if
asked
I
it the way
wanted
I
to add, like,
asked it.
ooh, this is a really coffee flavored edible, I want to add a hint of chocolate or so, and I've got another cannabis derived terp, whatever you're pulling out.
So it becomes a reason then of why you're adding it back in.
To me, like, that's a chef's question, right? Like, would you ever limit a chef and tell them they can only use the flavor that you give them? Or if they're like, "Oh, but if this just had a little bit of orange, it would be so much better." Like, you got a really cherry sour cultivar that has natural cherry sour, and they're like, "Oh, but just a hint of orange would just bring this dessert to a 5-star level."
So now we know that I'm going to get to where I can heat up my next dab over here. Where are we getting? We know that different terpenes have a different effect on different things in the body,
Mhm.
right? Different uses on the body, and we can isolate them to a repeatable level, right?
Right, truly medicinal.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yes.
now being used on less of a taste preference, blah, blah kind of level. What if we then are using them on a medicinally based level in medicinally based ratios?
That I would love, that's where I wanna see us get to. That because me, it's I want the data, I want repeatable, I want every batch to have the same effect for people if you're doing that. That's where we're gonna get the full regulatory open doors. It's imagine if your medication that you take, they said, "Well, 20% of the people it works for, but 30% of the people it makes them poop." And then, some people just end up sleeping all the time. Like, it would be it wouldn't be medicine at that point. And I think that's kind of part of the hurdle that we have to overcome. Um, when you're talking again, though, you get into the damn variables. Because everybody's endocannabinoid system's gonna react differently, but there has to be something in there where, like, the inflammation reduction or actually attacking cancer cells, that type of stuff, it would be nice to be able to isolate
You
and
know, and in some way, the pharmaceutical industry also, I mean, they do have that problem. They do have kind of throwing a dart at the wall to some extent, where to some percentage this does
100%
help.
Viagra was created by accident, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and I don't think that that's always necessarily a bad thing, but it just shouldn't be okay for one instance and not for another, you know.
Well, I think that's where you end up getting into trials and studies,
Hmm.
and so that's where we need to get next.
But I honestly
Is
think, just like Bob says down here, the trials and studies, they go down to those pieces of paper that you sign where they can share your information.
Mhm.
You are the fucking study,
Right,
you
but
know.
that's there has to go through at least a couple of rounds, right? So you start with your small studies, you do some double blinds, like we said earlier, some placebos, you go back and forth, you look for the effects. Um, Once we get at the federal level, that's what I want to see. I want to see us federally funded big studies to get us to that point because they're shooting in the dark, but they're at least they can aim. And I feel like with us, we have a broken hand right now. So
Do you think that our broken, whatever
it's
words you just used because I was coughing, is due to regulatory?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've got our hand tied behind our back and we're throwing a dart at the board. You know, that's part of the problem. And you release our hand and let us actually play on the same playing field. People might be
I.e.,
surprised.
i.e., we can't test because
Right.
we can't use.
Right. So when we get to that point, though, does it all of a sudden become, holy shit, this is the holy grail we've been looking for? Because we don't know. Like, do we
Or does
find
it
those
become, I mean, how bad would it be if we find out that, oh shit, dabbing's fucking us up, dude? You know, I saw that too. You know, there's a possibility, you know, because possibilities are infinite, right?
Yeah.
I just
You
saw
have
that
to
on,
do,
what do
you
they
have
say
to
there?
gather enough data.
Yep.
And right now, too much of our data is contaminated.
So I mean,
Because-
there's a possibility that we can find out that there's some not so good things about this plant. Maybe,
Right.
you know,
100%.
maybe we've been using it ceremonially, but not all ceremonial things we've used have been great for us. You know,
It may also be that they determine better ways to isolate and then better ways to consume.
right?
Like, do they say, well, you guys are using coconut oil? Why? We can synthesize this atom and it'll attach the same way as the fat and carry that shit the same way, and it doesn't make you poop. You know?
What if us fucking heady hash heads all of a sudden find out that BHO is better because of the way it's fucking processed? You know.
You never know. There's so many, and even it could be a completely different isolation style that, you know, as we get into bigger scientific areas, you're going to have it,
Man, that could be a big conversation. That could be a very big, interesting thing because we've already found out that at different temperatures, we'll vocalize it for people that are listening, of consuming these products at different temperatures. You know, um, but so that would be then. You know, are we dabbing at too high of a temperature, right? But at what temp does flour burn when we're smoking a joint? You know,
Mhm.
so is that your? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what
If
I'm
we're
saying is
talking temperatures, maybe then fucking smoking a joint it is horrible. You know, maybe smoking bowls are fucking horrible, and because of temperature and smoke inhalation. Maybe we don't know.
yeah.
You know, obviously we know that
We
smoke
know some stuff,
inhalation.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But it's the we need
Yep.
a
See.
larger data set, consistent.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How hot is the fire?
But yeah, dude, different consumption methods. Um,
I think we'll see like new consumption methods.
and new extraction
Yeah.
and or
Like
isolation methods.
for me, and this is not how I want to consume, obviously. I'm just saying there's certain people who cannot consume that need the help, that need the medicine. So if they're able to isolate and all of a sudden they're like, look, now we have an IV drip that's cannabis that goes right into your blood and helps take care of your cancer. Like
That's an
that's
interesting one, right?
and because you have people that are so far that they need it, or it's brain cancer, or it's lung cancer. They're not able to inhale. You know, you and I, we lost our good friend, and it, it would be great to see something like that to be able to help that.
Mhm.
You know, it's one.
I found also on this note that the high temp dabs get me hot jacked, i.e. higher, and cold start not so much. Not only have I found that, but I've also found that and I don't know if I'd say in every instance, but at least in some instances, that a higher temp dab will burn off a lot more of the monoterpenes or
That's what I was
terpenes
gonna.
in general, which when we're talking
I get a
about,
more flavorful dab with a cold start,
yeah, absolutely getting more
and it's a
flavorful.
different flavor a
Yeah,
lot of times.
I think we were talking about this with when it might have been Future, might have been, and I can't remember the other gentleman. But that these are, we said, I think at one point in time we said, let's face it, these are volatile organic compounds. These are VOCs.
Oh, there's
These
nothing.
are
Yeah,
these are aggravating to your lungs. That's not the word I'm looking for, but
yeah,
gets
they
gets the
irritate.
point across. Irritating, thank you, to your lungs. So when I found that maybe it's just in my head that at higher temperatures there's less terpenes. It makes it a little bit of a smoother dab because of the less terpenes. I can go across the line and go too high and cause it to be, a too
A
hot.
hurdy.
Yeah, yeah, on a completely too high of a level. And then at that point in time, just like just like fucking burning flour, is at that point in time, are you creating um cancer causing carcinogens?
Carcinogens, yeah,
you know
very possible. I mean, it made me think of the Chaz story again, but you hitting it too hot, and all of a sudden your banger gets a little black. Is that black only on your banger, or are you also inhaling it?
right? Yeah,
So,
I mean, unfortunately it's a horrible thing, but
and this is the horrible thing too. But I'm gonna still light one up. So,
right. And I try to think about that too, and I go outside and I'll smoke a cigar too when I try to analyze, exactly why I do it. And my reason is for the buzz that I get. But I'm like, man, we know what this is doing.
yeah,
I've had a grandmother die. I'm sure pretty
yep,
much all of us have known somebody that's died of a lung related disease. Obviously, generally, lung cancer. Yet here we are, minimally in this community where we're inhaling. For the most part, every one of us have and or are inhaling smoke when we're burning a joint or burning a bowl. So we've seen someone die, yet we're still inhaling smoke. So
right.
at what point in time are we like, we do it because we like it, we do it because it's ceremonial,
It's the same reason I eat Hostess cupcakes.
right?
I
you know
mean, realistically, it's that it fills some stupid need. Uh, obviously, I want to quit smoking. It's one of those things that I know I need to. I'm going to be 50 years old. Like, holy shit! Some point I got to get my shit together. But um, it's also been there for so long. It's like it's a lifelong habit. And sometimes I'll hit a smoke once, and then I'll work and I'll look over and it's all ash. That's how most of my smokes go during the day. Um, but it's a habit. So I almost need to have, like, a lot of times I'll just hold the lighter. It's the finger habit. You got to have something there.
Yeah, it's
So,
I forget what they call that. Forget what they call that, but yeah, it's the wanting to play with something, you know.
yeah.
Um, but you know, there are medicinal benefits. I won't say in everything, but there are medicinal benefits, i.e., in uh, tobacco, smoking it, um, cannabis, smoking tobacco is an expectorant.
Mhm.
So, you know, used at and doses we don't know because we've never walked down those roads of testing, right? Certain doses are um, are do different things, you know. But the other variables, here we go again, right? Um, the other variables are what are we filtering it through? What are the materials we're filtering them through, and is there um any negative that any effect there? Are we inhaling anything from that, right?
Right. I mean, the original cigarette filters were like asbestos and shit, weren't
Yep,
they?
that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
Fibers, yeah, just horrible
Then
fibers.
again, I don't know. I mean, I've been smoking long enough that these now are fireproof. I don't know if you've seen where they will like go out if you just leave the cigarette.
See, then
And
there's
I've
the other
I've
thing.
I've almost started a fire more times since they've done that than I ever did before.
So whereas, okay, that's a good thing in that regard. Is it good to inhale whatever the fuck they're
Right. What is that
spraying on?
fucking ring that puts
You
out my
know,
cigarette halfway through?
exactly. So is when we smoke a little bit is when we smoke a cigar. And when I smoke my cigars, they're not good cigars because I don't know good cigars. But are they? Can they be good? You
Right.
know.
I mean, we're in a very large Indian community area, right? And we were at the powwow a month back maybe, and tobacco is a ceremonial portion of that
Mm-hmm.
whole thing.
Absolutely is.
And it has been for their entire history. So, but they're actually trying to even change the culture now and saying keep it to ceremony only. Um, because it's taking too many Native American lives here.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing I guess is just understanding the plant or the whatever thing you're going to consume. Guess I got to watch what the words I use here on YouTube. Um, if we understand them, i.e., tobacco's addiction, you know, um, then we can maybe understand that when we use these things, we should probably watch everybody and each other, you know, and just know that, you know, we had a ceremony last week, and man, I haven't seen Buds in a couple of days, you know, and it's just not like Budsy. We should maybe check in on Budsy, and you know what I'm saying. I'm just
Yeah,
being extreme,
totally.
but but just understanding and having the knowledge because we're able to do the testing, you know, can be a very beneficial thing. You know, can then drive our consumption reasons and rates and dosages and you know the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
It just
100%.
allows us. I'm just trying to keep the words coming out of my mouth until you're done dabbing over there.
I'm close.
But no, it just
Maybe one.
allows us to have those those answers. You know, the kind of like the reasons we have these podcasts to understand things. You know, like even earlier when we were trying to understand the percentages of edibles and actually having it incorrect at one point in time, you know, having it incorrect allows us to then correct it so that we all have a better understanding. And then not only can we figure it out by using rosin and coconut oil, right? But we can also then modify the variables, modify the percentages, the percentage of the flour, the percentages of how much
Adjust it to your
you
needs.
adjust it to your needs, because we've had this conversation and we've educated each other.
Yeah, I love that. I love having math. It helps me a lot. It's how my brain works. So excuse me. The back is still a little sore. The coughs are a little painful. Hopefully be back to normal next week. But Atlas here is talking in chat about, like you said, cultivation over history. We find cannabis in use across multiple civilizations all through history. Everyone seems to come to some sort of use with it. And same end, it's kind of like, tobacco as well. And coca leaves and, everyone. So I'm not sure that it's unique to cannabis. But excuse me, one more.
It definitely seems to, percentage wise, for the most part, be based around plant
For
based.
sure.
Yeah.
It's what they found in nature, right? So, and there's where you were
I've
depending on.
always kind of giggled at the thinking of the testing along the lines of, hey, let's try this book and let's try
Yeah.
16 of these.
Who was the first guy that freaking decided, well, let me light this on fire and inhale the smoke and see what happens? Because eating it doesn't do anything. I heard that earlier. Was like, whose idea was it to first milk a cow? Like, seriously, that was just someone doing something weird. But yeah, how do you figure this stuff out with some of the other plants? It's always, you chew them and you keep them in your mouth, and they do that with tobacco, they do it with coca, right? And you just eat the leaf and you don't swallow it, you just chew it and suck on the juices or whatever. But with cannabis, it's a whole different thing they had to do. But they did the same with tobacco. So you can chew tobacco and it'll give you some effect, but you can also create the smoke. So I feel like a lot of it originated from ceremony, and that's where that was a big one, dude.
Yeah, that
That
was
one
a really
closed the
big.
eyes.
That was one that I was trying to just breathe through as and let you talk. Have you ever just eaten a bud?
100%.
Just and then there's two different variables there.
Well, I'm also that generation where we baked brownies and not understood how you were supposed to bake brownies, and ended up getting very planty brownies that just make you poop a lot.
Don't understand the variables of actually adding in 2 ounces of actual plant flour,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
But yeah, then like I was saying, there's two different variables of eating a flower, dried or not, cured or not, fresh as fuck or.
Oh, oh no, when I was young, I've harvested plants and baked them in the oven so we could smoke them before.
Oh
You know,
wow.
like we were clueless. We weren't West Coasters. We were Detroit. No one was telling us shit. BC's, they're not giving their secrets away, and we're just young kids doing stupid shit in the hood. And yeah,
Yeah, without the community, without having the information, um there was a lot of having to refigure things out over and over and over again.
yep,
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
um
I mean, the
information waves.
connecting with old heads was always fun.
Oh,
We
for
didn't have a lot of that where I was. We were pretty hood. So there was
if you got to sit down and sesh with an old dude and just let him
oh,
kind of dump his little tidbits of information onto you, because
yep.
those old dudes were willing to. The young dudes we weren't willing to have these conversations. A lot of the times, we didn't even want, unless you were my boy. I didn't want you knowing I was consuming cannabis.
Oh yeah.
Weed at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to know I was smoking weed.
I smoked weed except when I went to work. Like I had to play the whole double life because I worked corporate America most of my life. I mean, all of my life practically. So from 16 on, I was a programmer at a bank. I'd show up dressed up nice. You can't smell like weed or nothing. So I obviously wasn't smoking before, but the second you get out, it's a whole different story.
You ever use fake pee?
Oh yeah, yeah. And no, the best. Well, originally it was just the little shitty bag, and you had to keep it in your pocket.
Yep.
But that was before they knew about it, and they weren't like look. Now they'll like look over your shoulders. So now they've got real advanced. They got like fake dicks and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they've got some actual units.
Yeah, that's. It always cracks me up with this time. This time I got my sister's pee. She's pregnant.
Yeah, it's funny. That's funny. And there's advancements there. There's always going to be advancements on
right
realizing that you can answer questions via testing rather than physical observation.
Going to the store and getting that little bottle of stuff that you have to down that was super thick and gross. I can't think of what it's called. The clean out stuff basically so you could pass. Yep.
Just even having to worry about that.
Yeah. I know. I can't tell you the last time that I've given a shit.
Yeah, it definitely depends on location.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be like even just different cities and different states, and or just different companies in different cities and different states. And, some people just don't give a shit.
It's funny because I've kind of lived on all sides of the U.S. So I've been Detroit, Florida, Texas, Arizona, California. I haven't lived in the middle really. Lived on all the edges though. Yeah, it's definitely very different in each area of how far you can go with it. Like Detroit, it didn't matter if I stunk like weed.
I'll say, having said that, fuck, dude. Working in the cannabis industry, everything that we talk about or work with or anything is cannabis, and where I work and what I do, it's cannabis. It's not weed. It's cannabis, but having seen some of the things that change once you cross that line is super eye-opening, like super eye-opening. just understanding having to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but having to do them because you won't be a company if you don't.
Yeah, regulatory framework.
So then having to change SOPs, but stay within, because we are, for instance, we're beyond organic. So trying to stay within those lines, but sometimes having to, make some changes. It'd be just to stay around sometimes, so it was very eye-opening crossing that line into the commercial market.
The hardest, it's definitely hard, but you also have to think, excuse me, Um, it sucks for the good people, but it also helps prevent some really bad people.
Oh, by far,
Like
for sure, for sure.
I hate regulation, but at the same time, like,
Oh my God,
man,
that's such a
the
true
shit
statement.
people, if you had no regulation, people would be doing horrible stuff.
A lot of corners would be cut that just
Yeah.
should not be cut.
And not everybody. There are a lot of good people in the industry, but there are also a lot of people that are there's money. So, and there's a lot of money to be made. And whenever you do that, you're gonna find someone that's like, fuck it, I'm gonna spray this with the grossest stuff, but I don't care. I mean, you've seen the glitter spray pack, like exactly, Atlas. Carts would be death syrup,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, and we, like you said, it what is it? Carts and pre-rolls is such a huge chunk of the business or of the market, actually.
It's nice. Our carts at Eden are 100% rosin. There's no additives whatsoever.
That's awesome. I love
About the only ones I'll smoke, and I really don't like carts at all. The only reason I'll like or smoke a cart is because of its convenience. Otherwise, I do not like a cart.
Yeah. It, I'm I don't know if I'd say lucky enough, but I don't leave the house enough. So,
Yeah, I
you
suppose.
know,
There you
if
go.
I'm gone, I have a cart. That's again, it's anytime I'm away from the house. All my rigs, everything are here at the house. But
The most convenient way to consume, like the most
yeah,
convenient, you know,
yeah.
absolutely.
I would almost have to roll joints again, which is what I used to do. You know, I'd look at the time like, okay, I'm going to be gone for this many hours. Here's how many joints I'm going to roll before I leave. I mean, that was just life. Every vehicle I've ever owned, I've got a special spot. You know, it's just always been part of life. But nowadays, the carts are you can have it in your pocket. They're not going to question you. If I come rolling up and I got fucking 30 joints in my pocket, that's a different question.
Right.
You know, but a couple of carts, they aren't going to question. 4 carts, 5 carts, and that, man, you can get some big ass carts.
Yeah, you can get some decent sized carts for sure.
So,
For sure. Well, dude, that's been two.
yeah,
Honestly, I was looking over at the time at one point in time, and I'm like, we said an hour, but this conversation has been so good.
yeah.
It
Got to
went
talk
into
about a lot of good topics
it
tonight.
went into a lot of topics that I did not anticipate that ended up being pretty hot and deep topics. I forgot a lot of shit that we were talking about as we were talking about it.
That's the best conversations. They just kind of flow, and it's just we just talk about what happens.
I was a huge one hitter fan.
Those little baseball bats.
I always had the little wooden container where it had the like the little baseball bat that had the spring in the bottom, and then you poked it. Yeah, you filled it up, bro. You could get like an eighth up in there, and I would have one of those things with me all the time. Those one hitters were badass.
I always had the little bullshit metal one, and you open it up before you leave, and you pack it, fucker, as tight as you can. Then you open the center, and you pack the center, so then you can smoke the bowl. And
I think
you cornered a few times to yourself, and
I maybe know what you're talking about. That's a whole another show. When we
cheers, everybody.
On the go smoking. Let's make that a show. That'd be funny. Hey, seriously, you 37. Come find us and suggest guests for future shows.
Who would you like to see us talk to?
Yeah, exactly. Who would you like to see us talk to? Doesn't necessarily have to be centralized around the cannabis industry, but at least try to find somebody that smokes some weed. But again, good show, Budsy. Great show, you guys.
Cheers, Pedro. Good to see you back again. You can catch us everywhere. You all know where we're at. We'll be back next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.